those are the 6 that when I really went through the list and I said, you know, what do I really want to give more of a chance? What do I want to take extra time on? This card absolutely gets better, right? Like every time a new character gets printed, this card gets better. I think this like 6 cost, 6/6 inkable with 2 lore, and I'm labeling this. Are you playing these cards? There's 6 of them here. We're gonna run through them, and these are 6 cards that I think it's 1 per ink, and I think they're cards that either are in certain decks, but they're absolutely not in enough decks. So our first card and is Megera. So Megera is almost exclusively played in Emerald Amethyst decks. It's really hard to find her anywhere else. And my opinion is that you should be playing this in all your Emerald decks. So this is a character that like just does so much at a 2 cost, and her biggest fault is that you almost never want to play her on turn 2. And I think that's maybe the reason why you're not seeing more of this card. Unless you're on the draw, you know, playing against Amber with Protective Cubs and you have Olaf, like that's the only time you really want to see this card on turn 2. Aside from that, this card is way closer to like, honestly, it's probably like a turn 4 or a turn 5 most of the time. And I think maybe that's why more people aren't seeing it, but she's inkable. So like, just, you know, if you don't need her on turn 2 or turn 3 or even turn 4, she's the perfect card to ink. But when you have the opportunity to blow your opponent out with a random +2, that's incredible. The other concept here, this will be more of a how will it stack in the ruling world, but in a world where we get more cards that like increase, you know, Dreamborn strength or something like that. Oh no, this does say specifically +2. I thought it said her, so never mind. Not the same, but it's more or less the effect that this card allows all of your lower curve cards to trade up. It allows cards like Cheshire Cat and, when in doubt, a Cusco or a Mad Hatter if you have to. A Hans going to 5 power can make a difference also. Like they're plays that your opponent just never expects you to make. And sometimes when you literally just make them, your opponent's like, wait a minute, like what just happened? And I think that's what this card creates. It creates this like flip the script play that most players are never planning for. And that's why I think it just needs to be played more Emerald decks.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you can even, I see a lot of lists that play like 3 of them, 2 of them. Like if you played 4 of them, not only is she, like you said, ink, but like you can have a situation where you can play 2 of them in the same turn.
Yeah.
In the late game. And like, can you imagine like Rapunzel becomes a 5/5? Like, you know, like things like that. So, you know, I think I don't think her stats matter.
No.
Like I understand that she gets like mowed down by AoE, but like so I mean, yes, she's collateral damage to a lot of this AoE and stuff like that, but like so is any 2-drop that you play. So like Flynn Rider gets AoE down by Grab Your Swords also. So like we not play him, like, you know, like, so yeah, I think she's very good.
Yeah, I think she's criminally underplayed, in all honesty.
I mean, we've reached a point where people don't want to keep damage characters in play because of Rapunzel.
Right.
And so like I prefer to put the damage output on characters above like to the critical level, I think is really important.
Yeah. That's where I'm at. That's where I'm at too. All right, so our second card here is Kronk. And to go back to the last segment, I think Kronk could also just be played over Taka, because again, if like resist comes into play, then you're like your Taka's a 6 cost with only 4 strength realistically or less. And although at the end of the day, it's also a 5/5. I think this like 6 cost, 6/6 inkable with 2 lore trades with like Elsa, Aladdin, and Lives. Like honestly, a very fair portion of the current metagame. This guy just lives. Like he just hangs around. So like, this is a card that I see a lot of decks trying to go higher in like the mid-range, like Amber Steel decks, right? Like when I wrote nowhere, it was a little bit of a joke. I know I've seen this like maybe in one of the Amber Steel decks that have top 8 it, like literally maybe one of them. Aside from that, it's not seeing much play whatsoever. But like, I do think that Amber Steel, the Amber Steel mid range deck could utilize this card. The Sapphire Steel decks can utilize this card. Emerald Steel decks can use this card. And honestly, a deck that we haven't seen in a couple weeks, Amethyst Steel, can utilize this card. Like, his potential and challenging is so great that he just gets to live to tell the tale. Like, he is the ultimate right hand man, in all honesty, because there's just not a lot of cards to trade with him on par, and most of them are going to be after he does something. So, like, I don't care if Maui comes in and gets rid of this guy. It's like I've already removed something from play, probably. Like, I'm already ahead. So, I don't know. I think this is one of the cards that at 6 costs for what he's doing, what he's representing, everyone mostly looks at that and goes, oh, he's a vanilla and he's not good. But when you start realizing that he can just flat out take certain characters out of the game and like force really awkward trades for your opponents, he's a really underplayed character.
It's just an effect of like Ruby Amethyst poisoning people's minds that like you can't play a character that costs over Dragon Fired away, but like that deck is seeing less play. I mean, he helps you things like Ursula and things like that. Like, he still represents a card that they need to take out.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have a critical mass of cards they need to take out, like, you're gonna have run.
Right.
So like an empty board, again, like you said, like sure Maui can take him out, but Maui's probably gone from the hand. Like they play so many uninkables that chances are they might not have 2 of them or something like that. So like, I don't know. He represents a pretty decent threat, and against a large swath of the rest of the meta, probably going to get you like a 3-for-1.
Yeah.
Easily. So
yeah, I mean, like in the mirror, this card's insane.
Mhm.
Like, if you're looking for like a card to add to the deck to be like to leverage mirror play, because if you like Amber Steel might keep going up in popularity, this card's real good in the mirror. Like, just like doesn't instantly die to Tinkerbell. Like the double grab your swords play, he's still hanging out. Like, he's just there. He requires a lot, and he also fills the void of sometimes it's really hard for you to like swing up with a lot of strength. This guy just has 6 strength, like on an inkable character. When he's bad, send him the inkwell, whatever. When he's good, he's going to be dominating.
Yeah, I agree. Mm-hmm.
All right. So our next card is Cinderella, Gentle and Kind. This is the first one on here where I actually like, people ask me all the time, I don't have Rapunzel's, what do I do? And this is Stadley. This is not Rapunzel, right? Like, it's not.
No.
But the Singer 5 ability does make this card unique. It does allow you to do really fun things early on in the game. And then, the Wonderful Dream, like you're never doing that, if I'm being honest. Like, I would be shocked if that's what you end up doing with this card.
Ever.
I'm not saying that I haven't seen it happen, but I'm saying you probably shouldn't do it. And 2 lore is almost worth it most times. But yeah, I've seen this very occasional in like the aggro Amber Steel decks that, like, honestly, like, I think this was like really early on where people just didn't have Rapunzel's yet. And then they just realized that Rapunzel's just a good card all the time, regardless of it. But if you're looking for a budget option to, specifically to Rapunzel, then this card is great. If you're looking for another way to sing cards, like, this is the same thing, like same argument of like not playing Rockstar Stitch, or like in the Amber Sapphire decks that aren't playing Ariel, this is another way to like sing Let It Go and still have like a full turn on turn 5 and things like that. So I think there's some niche playability. I don't think this card's like ever a 4 of, like, not in that kind. For what it's worth, I don't think any of the cards so far that I've spoken about are like straight 4-ofs, other than like Megera is a difference maker. But most of the cards in this list are just like niche things that you should attempt to include in your decks. And I think this is one of them that, like, it's a 2/5 with 2 lore. It costs 4. It has the ability to like exert up to 5 for, the Grab Your Swords, A Whole New World, Let It Goes. The list goes deeper. Like, eventually will go deeper. It's another card that over time, we talked about, the Singer will just get better. But Do you think that like this card could see more play, more commonly, or you just think it's just too budget for the most part?
No, I think it's good. I think it's a good backup to. I mean, she just suffers from really. I mean, to be honest with you. But I mean, 5 willpower is a lot. 2 is, I mean, she's not there to challenge. She's there to be challenged. So 2 is not insignificant when you're playing in a deck with Tinkerbell. Like any damage you can do is decent damage. This is my argument for Moana earlier, that we talked about. So to me, I mean, 5 is a lot of willpower, and 2 lore is. I mean, this is better than a 3-4-2, in my opinion.
Sure.
So like if you want a decent mid-range threat that like, isn't insignificant, I mean like, she survives combat with power characters, etc. Like I think she's fine. I think she's a decent character on curve. Even in aggro decks, like 5, like again, in Lorcana, the willpower stat is more of the aggro stat than because it keeps you around and allows you to quest more. And 5 is a lot.
Right.
And if you're on the play, she should be able to swing at least twice, and you're getting value out of it. So,
right. Yeah, I think I just think it's one of those ones that we just we don't see enough. In all honesty, so if you are hanging out tonight and you haven't yet, smash the like button for me. If you're watching the video after the fact, comment, let me know your opinions of the current cards going on, and we're talking about. And we got 3 more to go here. Scott, we have White Rabbit's Pocket Watch. Now, this is another card that I was going to specifically mention, in the last segment about cards that get better. This card absolutely gets better, right? Like every time a new character gets printed, this card gets better. But you look around the landscape and people have come to the realization that this card is like a necessary evil in Ruby Amethyst. Why is it not seeing more play outside of Ruby Amethyst?
I mean, I don't know what Amethyst can really do if you don't play this card. Only have Rafiki? Like, I don't really know what else it can do. So I think the reason why it doesn't see a lot of play outside of Ruby Amethyst is because everyone just thinks of like the Aladdin play.
Yeah.
But in reality, like, again, if you can afford to take the turn off, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a full turn, if you can afford to take most of a turn off, I would assume 3 ink, like from now on, you like every card you play represents a threat. Like if you play Elsa on 9, she's probably going to take out something like as she exerts them down. So to me, like I mean, sure, is Ursula going to do a whole lot with her 2 strength? Like probably not. But like you're playing some other color. So whether it's ruby or whether it's steel, whether it's whatever. To me, this is a premium Amethyst card.
Yeah.
So I don't know, like, in my opinion, any Amethyst deck should be running this. Is a reason you run out. That's like, I think Gaston is a premium Ruby card, for example. Like, it's just not something you think about because you're like, it doesn't cost, like, isn't legendary and doesn't have 3 lore or whatever. But to me, this is like a reason to play Amethyst.
Yeah. So a lot of the other conversations I've had is like decks like Emerald Amethyst are really bad on the draw, right? And I get it. It's not. They're bad on the draw because they only have one linear play, right? Like it really is just like play my guy, turn it sideways, and make my opponent like interact with me, which is a great strategy on the play. But on the draw, they're just like there's no way for them to get ahead in most cases. This is a type of card that later on in the game, when you drop, your John Silvers or your Genies or things like that, explicitly like Genies and Tinkerbells, and utilizing evasive to like keep guys around after the fact, they're perfectly prime targets for White Rabbit's Pocket Watch. Like the fact that you can just be like, oh, I'm going to, play my Tink, give something evasive, and then like I can use my evasive Tink to take out a lower card, or I can use my evasive Genie to take out a lower card, and now they don't have an evasive character to interact with my Genie. They have to have burn, or the damage on my card doesn't matter anyway, right? Like, if anytime I can get more out of a card that already has a come into play effect, I'm all for it. The same thing with John Silver. Like, it's not super ideal because that means they're likely just going to run into your John Silver. But if they have to like run in your John Silver and you still get to protect like your Cusco or your Mad Hatter or something like that that represents more lore over the course of the game, I'd rather use my 5/5 John Silver to get rid of a card and give something, the ability. I think it's a card that like Amethyst Emerald players should seriously consider playing. It's also a card that I would definitely be considering playing again, like in the Steel decks. Like this is a card that, all right, Tinkerbell on turn 7's okay if I don't need to shift and give a rush. I just have Pocket Watch to effectively give it to her also, right? Like it's just another line of play. So this is a card like, granted, I think there's an entire video on the channel about this. It was either a short or a video. It was from months ago, but like there's an entire video about this card and how good I thought it was 3 months ago. And my attitude doesn't change whatsoever. This card's phenomenal. Like it's play more of it, guys. Just play more of this card.
And we know it sees play in one of the top decks already, but it's in the other decks that should
It's like it's literally in Ruby Amethyst and then nowhere else to be found. I don't get it. I don't get it. All right, so here's my last one, and this is the first one. It's like cheating. It's 2 of them.
No, I know what you're saying.
Obviously, Jasmine is one of those Floodborn characters that I think she just honestly hasn't found a place. And for me, I tested her a couple weeks ago in the Emerald Sapphire deck that was posted originally by First to 20. And I threw her in there because, honestly, I listen, right? I watch other content. I listen to people. And they're saying his thing was he didn't want to go above 5 ink. And I'm like, okay, well, like what else can I play for 5 ink then? And that's why I looked. And his deck, I believe, already had Jasmine in it. I was like, let me just try Floodborn Jasmine. And what I really like about this card is I think something that people aren't used to doing. So my play line for this card throughout the league games I was playing was I was actually utilizing Jasmine as a challenger. So I would challenge with baby Jasmine. I would remove whatever 2/2 or 2/1 or whatever, or 2/3, whatever was just left hanging around. And then I would actually shift out Queen of Agrabah on top of her and repair her. And now on turn 4, you effectively have this 2/5 character that, there aren't a whole lot of cards in the game that can remove a full health character on 2/5. So you end up getting the ability anyway, but it also now lets you utilize, and this was specifically in certain decks, right? But like it lets you utilize cards like Rafiki or Zeus even better, because now on the following turn, you can utilize a rushing Rafiki or rushing Zeus, and then you could quest with Jasmine and repair them. So I think this is just a line of play that like people aren't recognizing, and they're not like taking advantage of this actual ability. And I think that this is honestly like a criminally underplayed card as well. And having to play a 3-cost 3/3 with 2 lore, it's like not much of a penalty, right?
I think some of the underutilized shifters are underplayed as it is, and she's definitely one of them. Because everything, like a lot of people look at shift and they think card disadvantage, whereas I look at it like tempo advantage.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if like the 3/3 is dead on board because they have like a 3/4, I'm just using stats. Like it doesn't really matter. Like
the wardrobe,
right? Like if you just became a 2, like if the card's dead anyway, then it's just better to be a 2/5 in that situation that can constantly heal, like that has additional abilities over and above what it already had. Like if she's already just dead, then you might as well just make her better, who can now sing, etc. Where you're really only paying the 3 for it. Like I understand you're paying like 6 over the course, but you can't look at it like that. You have to look at it like each turn being like its own individual thing. And the play line that you mentioned is just like an insane play line where you have no disadvantage whatsoever, where all she is basically, again, exerted to be, Mauied away or something like that. But that's really like what people are thinking about. If she's able to stay in play against non-Ruby decks, like she represents a threat that, again, has to be taken out all in one turn, or else she's probably never going to be out for a very, very long time, because she's constantly like just removing damage from your entire board every single turn doing what she wants to be doing. Like, I don't think she wants to be. I mean, I'm sorry, I don't think she wants to be challenging most of the time. So she's just going to constantly be, taking damage off all your characters from then on out. So she has a very, very powerful ability. I think it's just that, again, the meta game was just so over, like, it just Ruby Amethyst was just so over it that, like, it became like I can't play 5 drops that can't compete with Maui, which there's none of, and things like that. So
Right. I mean, Maui's just an anomaly. Like,
right,
what are you gonna do? Like,
yeah,
it's the same thing as Dragonfire, right? Like, I get it. Like, yeah, these cards
yeah,
exist, but eventually you get to a point, and I think we can mostly close on this. Like, the way the meta has been shifting. It obviously there still has been successful Ruby Amethyst decks, but you're starting to see kinks in the armor finally. Like, there's been decks, there's been line of play, there's been all these sorts of things are kinking the armor finally, and if we start seeing less and less of them, then you have the ability to try out new things that you knew were bad into one thing but good into like the majority of other things. And I think that's important, is that particularly in particular this card's great in against the steel decks. Like, if they just leave lingering damage around because they're like, oh, I'll just pick it off with a smash, or I'll pick it off with a fire the can, whatever, you're just like, well,
yeah.
drop my Jasmine and erase your whole turn, and thanks for hanging out with me. So
And it's a coming into play ability, not just a quest ability.
right.
So it's not just like that 4-cost Hans that you have to with, which is good, but like this is like, if you shift her, you can heal like 4 damage,
Yeah.
like very easily, like
Yeah.
without a doubt, without even like your play line of like taking out something and then healing them. Like, you can literally just heal 4 off guys all the time. Now,
Absolutely.
again, you are repeating, you're competing with one thing. I think there is play for her to see. There is room for her to see play in the metagame.
Yeah. I mean, I think, and don't get me wrong, like, this is, granted, we talked about it already with the Floodborn thing, but it's like, it's just another thing where Floodborns as a whole are probably underplayed. And she is definitely, in my opinion, one of the top of the list, because her ability is just very, it's like, it's awkward because we talk about a lot of times where you just don't have this damage like floating around and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But you can set yourself up. You can literally set yourself up to have the damage, to take advantage, to put yourself in a better board state. And then, like, on top of that, you're just like, oh, now not only am I in a better board state, but now I have this new threat that, like, they have to worry about this now, like, and then I still have this other thing that I just healed. So I don't know. It's interesting. I think those 6 cards, and for what it's worth, I do think there are more than the 6 cards that we covered in this particular segment here, but those are the 6 that, when I really went through the list and I said, what do I really want to give more of a chance? What do I want to take extra time on? Especially now, right? Like, we're 6 weeks into the meta game. We have a ton of information about all of it, and you can really start, you probably know 55 cards in your deck almost all the time. You're like, all right, here's 55 cards. What do I do with these last 5 slots? And I'm encouraging players to challenge themselves to try other stuff, to like, just what I mean, we have Pixelborn like access to it, like literally right now. All 40 of you guys in the chat right now could be playing Pixelborn, listening to us chatter. Like, just take a couple cards out of your deck and try some of these cards and just see what it can do for you. See what matchups it's effective in. See if you can, really warrant the opportunity. If you know that a certain card in certain matchups just are like just falling victim. And the other key thing here is, like, when you're making those choices, players often try and like increase their odds in a matchup by like 1% in a bad matchup. And I think that that's a waste of time in most cases. So I would be taking those cards out of my deck to make my particular matchup better against other matchups, rather than trying to salvage a matchup that's like, I don't know, 75-25 or 70-30. Like, going to like 32% is not good.
No, I agree.
If you have been following around the entire time here, for whatever reason, if you're not, hit subscribe, hit a like button for us. Hope you guys did enjoy this, and let me know, if you're watching this after, there's a card that you think is definitely better that we missed. I'd love to hear it.